What's going on, everyone? Sean here with Triangle of Truth, and I am back with a rapid review. And for this one, I decided that I got away from doing a lot of superhero stuff earlier this year because, as I've said in other videos, I got a little burnt out about just reading about heroes and even some villains and whatnot. And so I went off on a big reading exploration of just every other genre, murder mysteries, horror, slashers, etc. But I was kind of getting that itch. That's what brought me into comics. Initially, of course, was the heroes. So I decided to get back into a series that I had bought a few issues of a few different characters. And that's the Earth 1 series. And you can look here on the channel, and I did a review of the Superman Earth 1 Volume 1. So definitely check that out. I'll leave a link in the description when we put the video up. So for this one, I am doing Green Lantern Volume 1 from the Earth 1 series. This one is done by Gabriel Hardman, Karina Becco, hope I said that right, and Jordan Boyd. This is most definitely Green Lantern with a twist to it. A definite twist on how Hal Jordan becomes a Green Lantern. So in this one, I am pretty sure we are set off into the future. Not necessarily sure what century and whatnot, but Hal still works for Ferris, but instead of being Ferris Air, in this they are Ferris Galactic. And basically, in this one, he is working on a ship that is hired to try and find material supplies for cell phones on Earth. So they're on a planet, they're trying to find this stuff, and he happens to come across a spaceship that has been there for quite a long time. So him and his partner go in and they look inside the vessel and explore it. They don't specify if it's Abin Sur, but they do find a dead lantern and a ring, and they also find a robot. And this will be a key thing here in a little bit. So they get the ring off, and they do happen to find a power battery as well. And he gets it to charge by, he just kind of points at the thing, and boom, it's got a charge to it. Well, they're on their way back to their ship in a shuttle, basically. And his partner somehow, he gets the ring on, and somehow he just sets off, he blasts the ship in half. Basically, and he kind of kills himself instantly. Well, Hal manages to get a hold of the ring, and of course it's got power, so he's got, the aura, the protective shield around him that allows him to breathe in space. Of course, as he's doing this, and he kind of concentrates, because he realizes if his concentration breaks and whatnot, and the ring kind of comes off, so does the shield. So he starts concentrating more. Well, this in turn wakes up this robot that begins to attack him. And he ends up being able to focus and beat this thing, but the ring runs out of power on this. So, but in doing so, it still somehow sends out some kind of distress signal. So he wakes up later after several hours, and it's Kilowog that had actually rescued him. And this is where the story definitely takes another big twist from how the normal origin story for Hal goes. Yes, Kilowog has a Green Lantern ring, but Kilowog thinks that because Hal killed what is called a Manhunter, that's what these robots are called, that Hal is a very powerful lantern and has been around for a while. Hal has no idea what he's talking about. And this is where you kind of get a little bit of an origin of what's going on. So apparently in this timeline, the Lantern Corps had been basically destroyed and hunted by these Manhunters. And there was a rumor the aliens that created the Corps itself are the ones that created these Manhunters to hunt them and basically put the Corps into extinction. But what had also happened, apparently, is that the main power battery on Oa had been destroyed, which is why the lanterns and the rings themselves are so weak. Without that main power source, the rings are substantially weakened. So the only reason why Hal was actually able to defeat the Manhunter that he fought is because it was rusted and just not at 100%. So they go ahead and charge his ring and Kilowog's ring on Kilowog's battery, because somewhere in everything Hal lost the power battery that he had. And so he wants Kilowog to teach him how to fly, because in Hal's mind he's a pilot at heart. He always wants to know how everything works before he goes and does it. So he wants to understand how he can do things, how the ring works. So he asks Kilowog to teach him what he does know. And what this eventually does is, on Kilowog's world, it's illegal for Hal to be there. They've made themselves isolated off so that the Manhunters don't come after them and have any reason to enslave them and whatnot. And they don't allow outsiders for that same reason to draw extra attention. But the government happens to spot them, so they come to try to take Hal away. Well, in the middle of all this, the Manhunters come to attack. And it's a bunch of them. And these guys are definitely quite a bit more powerful. And Hal realizes that pretty quick, because Kilowog went to go try to attack him, and he was getting his ass kicked flat out. And Hal managed to get him out of there and to safety on another planet. And of course, Kilowog at this point is actually really kind of ticked off at him, because he's like, "You've made me look like a coward and this and that, and so I have to go back." And then he tries. And then it's not very long before Kilowog comes back and realizes that Hal was right. There's no way he's going to be able to fight them on his own, without the help of other lanterns. Well, the planet that they're on, they go to decide to look around on it, and they do find another person with a power ring. I believe the name is Aristia. I'll have to look that up and make sure. If I have it wrong, Jay will put it somewhere here on the screen, the correct spelling of the name and everything. But she declines to help them. She says, "I'm sorry, but she's got to worry about her planet and her people. Their fight is their problem." So they apologize to her and they go on their way. Well, again, they are attacked by a crap ton of these Manhunters, and they actually end up getting captured this time. They end up on another planet where it's obviously the Manhunter's main base, and now you just see Hal at this point. You don't actually see Kilowog. Somehow, I guess Kilowog got away, in all of this. So now Hal is a slave, and of course the ring is dead at this point. So he actually can't understand anything that anyone around him is saying, since he doesn't have the ring powered up to be a universal translator. So you go through a few pages of, you hear his thoughts, you see alien languages, you see the Manhunters kind of talking, and of course very robot talk. But it's beautiful artwork, so you definitely don't get bored by the lack of dialogue, at least for these few pages. And then somehow, some way, in the midst of everything, one of the aliens is being very kind to Hal. All of a sudden he can start understanding her. And he doesn't understand how the ring got powered up. But it's powered up enough that they could do something and try to escape. So they managed to do something to get all the way up to the surface. And the alien's trying to convince Hal to go. Hal's like, "Well, we need to save everybody else." And the alien's not having any of this. So, and I believe it's a she, just basically just takes the ring from him. It's like, "You're not worthy of this," blah, blah, blah. And Hal tries to tell her, "Be careful." What you're doing, she ends up shooting off a big blast because she doesn't know what she's doing. Well, a couple of the Manhunters, like a squadron of them that are around doing a patrol, see that, and they happen to start coming to get her. Immediately she's destroyed. She can't do anything with these guys. And Hal grabs the ring again, and they spot him, and they're coming after him. Well, he's standing next to some kind of building, which ends up being like a dome. Blows a hole in the wall so he can jump through it to get away from him. Again, here's another twist. Well, when he gets inside this thing, there's the main power battery that everybody knows from all of the Green Lantern mythos. The giant power battery that's there. Well, he realizes now he's on Oa. Or he thinks he is. Well, what happens is one of the, I believe they're called, is it Guardians? But, one of those guys contacts him through the lantern because he's charging the ring with it directly. He's contacting what he calls an alternate dimension. And this is where you find out that, yes, indeed, they did create the Manhunters, the Guardians and whatnot. So he tells them that they did it because they felt that the Green Lantern Corps were getting too willful and powerful and diverse. So they wanted it to be brought down, and that they had the Manhunters were created for that specifically, but they had measures of control over them, or at least they thought they did. So he plays it off like the Manhunters, they lost control of them in general. They ended up destroying the Guardians as well as most of the Lantern Corps. And then they encapsulated the battery within this dome, which doesn't allow its power to radiate throughout the universe. He tells how that the way to defeat them is to get the ring fully up to charge, use it to send out a distress signal to get anyone, any lantern or anyone with a ring, to come to Oa. And what they would do is they would shoot like a big blast at the battery to create a feedback loop, which would destroy all the Manhunters. When doing this, he also tells them that it will also destroy basically the planet. Hal at first is not real good with this, but the Guardian uses the whole, well, what is the fate of but a few thousand as compared to galactic peace? So Hal kind of is convinced by that, and so he's like, alright, he's going to go along with it. So he ends up being able to send this distress call. And this calls a bunch of different lanterns, and they all come and they all realize, he tells them, the power battery is still alive and well, I need your help. So they come, and they get into the battle with all of the Manhunters. And it's a pretty good battle for several pages. I mean, just amazing. Blasts everywhere. You do see some, robots blowing up, some people dying. Well, they eventually blow the dome up so that they can do the feedback loop. Well, Hal shares the plan with all of these people. And one of them speaks up and says, well, apparently he was a physicist, or is a physicist, I should say. He says there's a way to do this without killing everybody else, and it will only kill the Manhunters. And they all obviously agree that this is the best way to do it, because why kill innocents? So they do it, and boom, it manages to kill all of the Manhunters that are there on Oa. But the ones that are off planet doing stuff, then they got to go start getting those one by one. So a little bit after this, they all are on a different planet. They're all talking. They all decide to select that they need a leader. How do we decide who goes where and this and that? And the girl that Kilowog and Hal met earlier in the story is the one that they nominate to be the leader, and she accepts. So they go back to Kilowog's planet, and they do what they can to help eradicate some of the Manhunters, and then they leave Kilowog to do what he does and work with the government to make sure that this planet is safe. Now comes what I think is my favorite part of the book, and where everybody seems to be getting me this year, is like these last few pages. So they go back over to this Guardian, and you see him, and he's talking to, I guess, an assistant or somebody that's there with him, and obviously he's disappointed they didn't do what I planned. Well, the reason why he wanted them to do what they did is so that it would not only destroy the Manhunters, it would destroy the Lanterns. So he says, well, I made these rings hundreds of years ago, but what I've done now is improved. And just this big epic shot of fists in the air, and as you can probably imagine, this is the Yellow Lantern Corps. And they kind of basically leave it at that. So I am ready to get Volume 2 to see if this goes into a war between the Green Lanterns and the Guardian and the Yellow Corps, just to see what happens. This is definitely a darker take on Green Lantern. It's one of the darker stories, kind of like a Blackest Night, where it is that kind of dark, but it's so good. And I like it because it's definitely a different art style from a lot of the DC books, you know, in many ways. And they use a lot more vibrant colors. And you can see it right off the bat with, you know, the cover that we showed you. Hardcover on it is actually what drew me to it. It was up on a display on the wall, and all you see is a big green glow, and I see a green book, and I'm like, huh. Walk over to it and immediately bought it. And so I've got this, I've got the Superman, I've got Volume 2 of Superman, and I've also got a Batman. So I'm definitely going to get back into this Earth 1 series because they've all been really cool and really different. You know, I wouldn't say really different takes, but they are different takes on the characters. They make them a little darker. They also make them seem more real for whatever reason. That's how I felt about Superman. That's how I felt about Hal in this one. Hal was a lot more relatable this time around than what he usually is. He was not near as cocky like he is and real boisterous. So definitely give this a read. If you have read it, let me know in the comments what you thought of this, and have you gone ahead and read like Volume 2. Don't spoil it for me yet, but let me know if that was also good as well. As always, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you guys next time. Later, everyone.